In the last video, we talked about the right way to think about outlining and how outlines can be used at any point in the writing process to get a structural snapshot that can help you diagnose and solve problems with your writing. In this video, I want to move a little closer to the actual mechanics of writing and show you what my ideal writing workflow would look like. Everyone who writes a lot has their own approach to writing, but I find that many students who don't write much, who only write essays once or twice a year when it's required for a class, don't even have the concept of a writing workflow. That needs to change. I think students can really benefit from some exposure to the concept of a writing workflow and some examples. In this video, I'm going to focus on what an ideal workflow might look like, given the importance that I've placed on the use of outlines, draft writing, and rewriting. I'm also going to talk about integrating the use of reference sources into this workflow. Let's start with outlining and draft writing. Ideally, I'd like to be able to start out with brainstorming, either in outline mode or some kind of mind mapping or concept mapping mode. Mind maps have a looser structure than outlines, and they can be helpful when you're still in a very exploratory stage to visualize associations between ideas. But they also have a hierarchical structure, so you want the option of converting a mind map into an outline at some point. Now, just about every outlining tool can do the following things. 1, you can add sibling nodes and child nodes anywhere in the outline. Sibling nodes are nodes at the same hierarchical level in the outline. Child nodes are subnodes of a particular parent node. 2, you can promote and demote nodes up and down the hierarchy, usually just by dragging and dropping or tabbing inward and outward. So I can take the whole favorite pies node and demote it, turn it into a child node of favorite cakes. Here I've also promoted Dutch apple to a level 1 heading, so it's moved up the hierarchy and is now a sibling with favorite cakes. Number 3, you can collapse and expand the child nodes at any given level in the hierarchy. So on top, the nodes under favorite pies are collapsed and hidden, below they're expanded and visible. And 4, you can select a node and make it the focus of the editing page. So it sits at the top of the page, and you can work on it and its subnodes in isolation from the rest of the outline. Now, these are basic features of outlining tools, but in addition to this, what you really want is to be able to switch to draft writing mode right from the outline, so you can work on the actual text of your document within the section targeted in your outline. So that looks like this. From the outline, I want to be able to pick a node which represents a section of the essay and just start drafting the text for that section. I like to be able to jump in and start using standard editing tools like headings and subheadings and bold and italics, ordered and unordered lists, and so on. And ideally, what I'd like is that if I change the hierarchical structure of the document when I'm editing it, those changes will be automatically reflected in the outline. If I switch the order of 2 sections in my document, I want that change to be reflected in the outline when I switch back to outline mode. The key idea is that I want it to be easy to move back and forth between outline mode and draft writing mode. Any changes I make in the outline will automatically be reflected in the structure of the draft and vice versa. I call this synchronized outlining and drafting mode. Now, most academic essays are also going to require that you do some research on a topic and reference any sources you might have in your writing. Your research activities will involve reading articles and books and websites and finding images and watching videos, listening to audio files, and collecting and organizing these sources in a way that allows you to remember what's in them and where to find relevant information when you're actually writing. How to keep track of all this is a perennial problem for writers. From a workflow standpoint, the important thing is to have easy access to your research materials while you're writing. And I want to have access to them whether I'm in outline mode or draft mode. For example, I'd like to be able to jump out of outline mode or draft writing mode and consult a source or look up a news source, and then jump back into my writing right where I left off. For example, if I'm writing about my nostalgia for banana cream pie, I might want to reference my mom's banana cream pie recipe so I can talk about what she added that made it so good. And I don't want the transition to be so disruptive that it's a huge production to look up a source, find the relevant information, and then go back into the writing to paraphrase the reference or copy a quotation. I want this part of the writing process to be just as easy to manage as switching between outline mode and draft writing mode. So to sum up, my ideal writing workflow has 2 major components. First, I want to be able to make changes to the outline that automatically change the organization of the draft and vice versa. I call this synchronized outlining and draft mode. And second, I want my research materials to be easily accessible while I'm writing so that I can consult them and refer to them during the writing process without disrupting the writing process too much. People who write a lot will develop their own workflow, and the details will vary from person to person. A student has different needs than, say, a professional academic who makes heavy use of journal articles in their research. And an academic has different needs than, say, a novelist who needs to keep track of plot and character elements and research materials that they use to inform the setting of a story. But anyone who writes a lot understands the value of the workflow that I've emphasized here. If you're a student, and the sooner you start thinking about your writing workflow, the better, because a good workflow makes any writing task easier.